Father Patrocinio by Leopoldo Ceballos Lopez. Most Spaniards in Tangier knew Father Patrocinio Garcia Barriuso. He was a priest with a strong personality, although he did not have the same charisma as other eminent Franciscans who had lived in Tangier, such as Bishop Betanzos or Father Buenaventura. Yet no one remained indifferent to him. Thanks to his stern temperament, vast culture, and great capacity for work, as well as, in my opinion, his strict insistence on rigorous adherence to church doctrine and austere moral customs, he conveyed his religious and ethical teachings through sermons and homilies, mainly delivered at the Church of the Sacred Heart, and through his writings in the parish bulletin, which he directed and edited for several decades, as well as numerous articles published in religious outlets in Tangier, the Spanish Protectorate, and Spain. He also maintained this same line of thought in the religious classes he taught at the Spanish Institute of Tangier. But Father Patrocinio was not just a fervent priest striving to fulfill his mission and apostolate as strictly as possible. He was also an intellectual of the highest order, a distinguished jurist, a prominent musicologist, and an excellent writer. He was born in 1909 in Ventosa de Pisuerga, a small village in the province of Palencia, into a very modest family. From a young age, he showed intellectual promise, intelligence, and a strong will to excel. For this reason, his father, not wanting to waste such aptitude, decided, against the boy's own wishes, to enroll him, at age 14, in the seminary in Pontiarias. The following year, he donned the Franciscan habit, which he would wear for the rest of his life. He then studied philosophy in Orense and theology in Santiago. He was ordained a priest in 1932. At the same time, he studied music, specializing in the organ, and became the official organist of Santiago. With his background, in August 1932, just shy of his 23rd birthday, he was sent to Morocco. Initially, he spent a few years in Tetuan, but soon after moved to Tangier, where he would remain for some 30 years, becoming one of the most notable figures of the international city. Apart from his fervent apostolic work and the administrative tasks entrusted to him, he devoted his remaining time to studying Moroccan history and culture, researching and disseminating Hispano-Muslim music, and studying law, publishing important legal works. He also engaged in activities related to religion and Islamic law, and wrote on a variety of subjects such as the Holy Land, the biographies of saints, canonization causes, the study of the Basilica of San Francisco el Grande in Madrid, and many more. I met Father Patrocinio when I was very young, not only at the Church of the Sacred Heart where he officiated, but especially because he was frequently invited to lunch at my home by my parents. Our guest, apart from enjoying the splendid meals prepared by my mother, liked to engage in discussions on various legal and other topics with my father, who at the time was one of Tangier's best lawyers. Father Patrocinio was also a fine jurist, having completed his law degree around 1937 and soon after earning his doctorate with honors thanks to his excellent thesis on Islamic marriage law and Muslim marriages in Morocco, published in 1952, which remains a reference work to this day. Few people know that he was the only priest to become a member of the Tangier Bar Association. He had also studied philosophy and humanities and enjoyed writing articles on religious, legal, and other subjects in various media outlets, particularly in Mauritania, a Franciscan publication which he directed for many years. I remember that, along with the rest of my family, we listened with great interest to his conversations, which ranged across Moroccan topics, religion, law, and philosophy. Both the Franciscan friar and my father, only 10 years his senior, were brilliant conversationalists and great debaters. It was clear they enjoyed their intellectual exchanges, in which I was merely a listener until I timidly joined in after completing my law studies. Interestingly, though Father Patrocinio was strict in religious and moral matters, he spoke quite freely on philosophical, historical, political, or legal subjects. I believe that both he and my father felt that regarding matters of faith, what they called from the rooftops up, there was little room for debate, but that anything from the rooftops down was open to discussion. I always held Father Patrocinio in great esteem and eventually developed considerable affection for him, especially after he devoted himself to helping me translate Latin into Spanish, which was necessary for passing Roman law, a course that required translation and commentary of Roman legal texts. As I grew older, I came to understand the friar's astonishing intellectual capacity and the tremendous efforts he had made to expand his knowledge, not only academically but also linguistically. Father Patrocinio came to speak Moroccan Arabic fairly well, had a good grasp of French, and a working knowledge of English. What is most remarkable is that he acquired most of this legal, linguistic, and other knowledge largely through self-study, thanks to his extraordinary willpower. Furthermore, as I have noted, he dedicated a significant part of his life in Morocco to the study of Hispano-Muslim music, for which his extensive musical training at the seminary was very useful. During his time in Tetuan, he helped establish a conservatory of Moroccan music that, if I'm not mistaken, laid the foundation for the prestigious music center that exists there today, also supported by the eminent Tangier musician Mohamed Larbi Tenzamani. At that time, Garcia Barriuso traveled through much of northern Morocco, collecting music and songs from many villages. In 1941, he published his magnum opus on this subject, Hispano-Muslim Music in Morocco. A few years later, American musician and writer Paul Bowles, who spent much of his life in Tangier, also became interested in Moroccan music. He promoted it so effectively that members of the Beat Generation and groups like the Rolling Stones, as well as John Lennon of the Beatles, found inspiration in it. Not long ago, in El País, the esteemed critic Diego A. Manrique recalled how Bowles admitted in an interview, "Everything I know about Moroccan music I learned from a Spanish priest's book," referring to Father Patrocinio's. I should mention that some fellow Tangier residents who also knew Father Patrocinio do not entirely share this portrait of him, considering him to have been rather permissive and liberal. I don't recall exactly when Father Patrocinio left Tangier. I believe he returned to Spain before I left the city in 1962. I do know he went to live in Madrid, where he served, among other duties, as prosecutor and defender of the bond at the Ecclesiastical Tribunal of Madrid, just as he had done in Tangier since 1942, and took on the editorship of Confer, the magazine of the Conference of Religious. I also know he spent time in Rome and Jerusalem, where he gathered materials for his major study, Spain in the history of the Holy Land, and that he was involved in several canonization processes. I remember how moved and grateful he was upon receiving the honor of Commander of the Order of Isabella the Catholic, with which the Spanish government recognized his outstanding work in religion, law, musicology, and research. In the early 1970s, I reunited with Father Patrocinio in Madrid. During the decade I lived in that city, I had the privilege of seeing him fairly often and of having him attend some family gatherings. Our relationship then was quite different from when I was a silent observer of his conversations with my father. I believe we became good friends, though I never abandoned the respectful formalities I had observed since childhood. For instance, he addressed me informally, while I always maintained the formal usted. But that did not diminish the richness of our conversations, which spanned countless topics in which he was a true expert. I remember, among others, his critical or admiring reflections on Moroccans, his deep knowledge of the Holy Land, his exhaustive expertise in canon law and ecclesiastical courts, particularly the Tribunal of the Rota, the problems he believed would prevent divorce in Spain, in which he was, of course, mistaken, religious confessionalism, and many other issues. In my view, time had softened his conservative views on society and morality, allowing us to speak quite openly on controversial ideas and emerging debates of the time in Spain. When he was already quite elderly, Father Patrocinio retired to the Franciscan province of Santiago de Compostela. In his headquarters, the old convent of Canedo, his fellow friars, led by the provincial minister and the Archbishop of Tangier, held a tribute in June 1994 to honor and appreciate his long and fruitful life dedicated to work. A few years later, on December 29, 1997, after turning 92, he passed away surrounded by the affection and respect of his Franciscan brothers. Today, Tingis remembers him and honors the legacy of one of the Spaniards who most dignified Spain's presence in Morocco, and particularly in Tangier.